Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's check it out and see what comes flying out of my mouth as I watch.
Love.
It's literally love. What are we talking about?
I feel like everyone just seems like they work together.
I think so too.
Don't you think?
Everybody kind of just like fits.
I just can't picture anyone else with a different person.
I know.
Have you guys had sex yet?
No, we haven't.
You haven't? Dude, I don't know if anyone has. We didn't really talk about like, are we having sex? Are we?
I've talked about this before, that I would hope that everyone on this show would feel the freedom to do whatever they want, and also feel the freedom to talk about it, whether they, and also have the freedom to talk about it or not talk about it, even if other people are disclosing it. It's all options there are totally fine, and people should do what they want to do. I think that there is a tendency to prefer or see as the ideal that you would have sex right away, or at least soon. I think typically it is privileged for people to have sex right away. Also that they would talk about it. But what about everyone else? So kudos to Dave. Well, Dave asked the question, and let's rewind that.
Anyone else with a different person.
I know.
Have you guys had sex yet?
So he says, have you guys had sex yet? And then Devin shakes his head, and then Dave says, no, we haven't either. So I guess I would have preferred it if Dave had said, hey, by the way, I don't know if you mind talking about this, but I just want to talk about it briefly, that Lauren and I haven't had sex yet, and I think that's fine, and you don't have to tell me, but where are you guys with that? So, I mean, it sounds convoluted and pretty wordy, but I would prefer that, so that it would allow for Devin to bow out of that conversation if he's just not wanting to talk, particularly on camera, is the thing. These individuals know that everyone in their family in perpetuity are going to watch this, so it's important to respect that. Anyway, but maybe they have a close enough relationship that, and I think they do, right? From the pods, when Dave was crying, was it Devin that was, there was that scene where Joey's like eating something and he's just like hugging Dave. That was Dave, right? Pretty sure it was. And then Devin was the one that was really listening and responding and attuning. Anyway, so if you have that casualness and that repertoire, then you could ask a question like that, and Devin would have the closeness with Dave potentially to say, like, I don't really want to talk about that, and not feel the pressure to answer that way. I hope I'm making sense. Anyway, but we are hearing some data that they haven't had sex, which, doesn't indicate anything. And then Devin says, no, we haven't either. So, neither here nor there. Now, I will say that historically, and maybe even what we're seeing on the show when we think about the different couples, is that when there is sexual chemistry, at least it's one tick in the column of optimism about a yes at the altar. I don't know if that's exactly true. I don't usually note or take notes on that data, but my inclination is to say that there is a trend there. I mean, I'm remembering some couples that did not work out till at yes at the altar that very much did have, or at least they talked about having sex that first night. So there's that. But then Devin says something interesting here.
No, we haven't.
You haven't? Dude, I don't know if anyone has.
I don't know if anyone has. Okay. How would he know by that point? Because they haven't been talking, right? Has there been enough conversation already at this party? I don't know. It would be notable. And maybe that would be some sort of indication of this season or of Minneapolis. I don't think so. It's probably just random circumstance. It's also possible that he's not accurate. It doesn't really matter.
We didn't really talk about like, are we having sex? Are we not? But we just talked about like, we'll just like go with the flow and see how our physical connection is. I just feel like jumping right into sex right away is kind of diminishes all the stuff you did.
Yeah.
Communicating in the pods and actually getting to know them for.
Okay, so I will comment on that. If to him it diminishes their connection that they had in the pods, absolutely. But it does not, by definition, diminish or elevate anything. It's just a decision that you do when you want to do. if you want to do, how you want to do, at what pace you want to do as a couple, right? So that's all it is. And I will comment on at least the notion that sex is demeaning, that it diminishes, that it cheapens or something. And that's all just a cultural ball of nonsense. Sex, we can't help but to attribute all sorts of cultural and value and religious and spiritual, literally getting into heaven or hell for some people is dictated by this sort of behavior. And it is, at the very least, not scientific and is potentially really harmful for people. So that word diminished. Now, if he himself has that value and he and Virginia feel that way about it, absolutely, I would never say anything about that either way. Everything in that sentence is fine. But if he's attributing it to anybody, then I would say, no, doesn't. If, for example, like I would imagine Ben and Sarah, with how much physical chemistry there was between the two of them. The other couples, Joey and Monica, maybe. Daniel and Taylor, I would not be surprised if they were not being physical, but who knows? And I say all that just because it just seems like Ben and, at the very least, Sarah is really into Ben physically and emotionally. And I think Ben is into Sarah as well. So that at least would raise the possibility of them feeling comfortable enough. And also the two of them seem, again, Ben doesn't talk about his, he literally said, when it came to politics, he's like, I don't know anything about that. So Sarah is more self-disclosing. And I think Sarah is the sort of person that would not adhere to rigid gender and gender roles and also sex negativity. So I imagine that given Sarah's demeanor that she would be up for it. I can't know that, of course. You can be very lustful and physically affectionate and also personally make a choice that you're just going to wait, or just you're tired that night, which I would imagine, because I think I think the way that it works is after the pods, so it's 10 days, and then day 11, they fly the cast to a hotel in Honduras. Meanwhile, the crew is flying down with all the equipment and all the handlers, because each couple has a whole team of people that are assisting them and talking to them and accommodating them and, all that stuff, managing. And also there's a hierarchy anyway. So it takes a while to get all the equipment down. This happened famously during season 2 with Nick and Danielle. Nick is quite vocal on social media, as I'm glad that he is. I've talked with him on this podcast actually about how he was left in his hotel room for a few days. And I don't think he was told why. I learned later that it possibly was a mistake on behalf of the overall logistics of the show to leave the cast members alone in their hotel rooms way longer than what they were planning on, or at the very least what they should have, because they're isolated. I mean, at the very least, you would just say they're isolated socially, and they don't have their phones and they don't have the internet, so they're just twiddling their thumbs watching TV just by themselves. I was thinking, why not at least just have the guys and the women able to be together themselves in the hotel, put them on a particular floor so you can kind of quarantine them from the other group or whatever. Because, they don't want the couples to get together before they can film them, right? And, it makes sense, but they should, speed it up so that everyone's not isolated. And then what happened, according to Nick, and I believe it, and other cast members will say this, is that he was denied water and food. He said he lost something like 15 pounds in the hotel room, like those few days. And I don't think that was on purpose. I can't know. I think it was, again, a logistics mistake that the production was frantically trying to get all the equipment, and they just hadn't planned ahead in advance of like, okay, what do we do for the cast while they're stuck in their hotel rooms regarding water, regarding food, so that we can make sure that they have enough, because in order for them to keep them essentially prisoners in the hotel room, they themselves as staff would have to give them water and food, right? And so they would have to have so many different parts of logistics in place, ready to go at volume for all those people. They would have to have all the supply, and it would have to all be like paid for by a legitimate, buyer that is watching the budget and everything. And then they have to have people prepare it and then ferry it up to the individuals, the cast members, and the cast members have to know who to contact. And my impression was the person that the cast, Nick, was contacting was very low on the org chart and didn't have the authority to talk up the chain and say, by the way, I'm hearing things from my person that they are not getting enough food and water, like they just sort of put their head down and said, I'm just going to do my job, And now you could absolutely indict Kinetic for, at the very least, not paying enough attention to the welfare of the cast, and maybe even on purpose. Because, one of the things that you could wonder about is if they know that when they put the cast at a disadvantage that way, then it's easier to manipulate them. It's sort of like forcing them into like a cult victim of a cult member mindset, where you're just like, not only do I not have access to my phone or my passport or my wallet, but I can't even leave my room. So I have to learn that I have, learned helplessness, that whole thing. Anyway, and also building up tension around finally meeting your person again. Anyway, so why was I talking about all that? Sometimes I go down. Let's just watch the show. Maybe I'll remember.
They are?
True. And we've talked about it. We've been like close.
But you're not you guys haven't talked about like, oh, not until marriage. It's not like that.
No. She's like, I think that's something I'd want to explore before marriage.
I think that's a good idea to see the sexual chemistry between the two.
For sure. And we definitely have that in like other ways.
For
we
sure.
just haven't done
like intimacy. Yeah.
Okay. So they're each talking about, I don't know what Devin's position is, and it doesn't really matter, but I wonder if what he and Virginia will say, maybe to themselves or on camera, is that they want to wait until they're married because that's what they believe to be what God wants. So there's that. And Dave is saying, well, we've done other stuff. We've been to second and third base or something, or fifth base. We just haven't been all the way to home base. Well, I guess I'm interested because am I pulling for all of these people at this point? Yeah, I mean, I've already talked about Dave and Lauren and how I am in a way pulling with an asterisk on that. I could see if they have this potential, I could see this being a helpful experience for both of them, and I can see a path forward for both of them. And so I guess hearing that they have been at least somewhat physical, I don't know how it went. I'm going to just, I guess, take a guess that it went at least not horribly and say that that does bode well for them. But at the same time, do I think that, and I've talked about this, do I think that Dave has done enough work to really even know himself well enough to make a decision like this? I don't think so. I don't know. Joey and Monica, definitely pulling for them at this point. Devin and Virginia, I'm learning to pull for them. I mean, there was no reason not to pull for them, but they just didn't seem to have any interest in each other that was visible, but that's growing or was always there, and we're just seeing it. Daniel and Taylor, I don't know. I mean, after that whole thing with the Instagram and the seeming lack of chemistry, even during the pods, it makes me concerned that if they did get married, if they would soon find that there was no compulsion and love deep there, and they would end up hurting themselves if they did get married. But I don't know. Ben and Sarah, initially I was really pulling for them, but Ben has said some things that but of those things that Ben said, do I think that they are some massive indicator of Ben being a bad person or a harmful person? No. There's some very minor yellow tinted flags, if we're going from white or green, white, and then red, and so yellow is in between. Is yellow in between? That's what people say, right? And there's also orange. But anyway, you know what I'm saying.
Like if she's ready, like I'll be ready, but like it's totally up to her, and I get it. It's new. Like, we just saw each other for the first time a week ago.
Right.
Like, I get it.
So it was interesting to hear those timelines. So a week ago, that sounded pretty definitive, meaning 7 days, right? And that would mean that, so, day 10 in the pods is when they meet in the hallway. And then day 11, they fly out. Or maybe day 12, maybe day 11, they're in the hotel back in wherever, I think they film in the pods in Los Angeles, I'm not sure. And then day 12, they are flying out and they're, in their hotels isolated for 1 or 2 days, because I think they've tried to reduce that time. And then they've been together in the getaway, because I was thinking 2 or 3 days. So, it all kind of fits.
And like when we go back to real world,
Right.
that's gonna be interesting if you like continue doing that. I just genuinely want to know, like, what's up? Are you guys having sex yet? Like, what's it like? Like, are you cool with that?
We were just talking to, like, you guys haven't had sex.
Okay, so it looks like they pulled him away and he's slurring his words a little bit, which could indicate that it's later in the night after drinking a fair amount. I can't know, but it has that look to it. And he is reflecting back on, I guess I'm interested. What was he saying?
I just genuinely want to know, like, what's up? Are you guys having sex yet? Like, what's it like? Like, are you cool with that?
It's interesting. There's a theme of some awareness for him, at least verbally. I don't know if he has the awareness and just isn't verbalizing it, but there's been a number of instances where he'll say something that I think it indicates that he has some awareness of his needs or his inner workings, but not enough to be able to articulate it. He started off by saying, yeah, because I think they're asking him in this interview, like, why were you asking people about that kind of thing? And he says, well, I was just really wanting to know, like, what's up? What's it like? Are you cool with that? On the surface, we would say that he's looking for some comparisons to contrast and compare his own relationship or his own feelings about things. And then I'm wondering why so I guess on the surface, since he has said that he's up for having sex earlier, I mean, he wasn't adamant about it, but he was basically saying that she wants to go a little slower. He thinks he wants to go slower, so he's totally cool with that. So it sounds like, I mean, I don't know, but if I was to take a random guess, I would say that he's trying to figure out if she's normal. But I wouldn't, so given the overall hypotheses, the main hypotheses I have about him, which I can't know, of course, it's just purely speculative, that he is vulnerable enough and self-aware enough to notice that he's having some kind of anxiety about whether or not his relationship or himself in a relationship is okay or good enough or in the right spot. He's talked a lot about how he's never been in a relationship, so he's like, and might not have had it modeled for him. He is probably trying to figure out, am I normal? Are we normal? And is asking around because of that. And I also wonder if he is, in part, trying to figure out where he ranks. Is he can he uphold his typical defense against vulnerability and possible inferiority, possible rejection? Can he engage in his normal defense of superiority and aloofness? And he is, in a healthy way for him, actually trying to break out of that, because the typical way might, and he's talked about this, that he would just avoid the whole thing and say, I don't need this shit. But he's trying in his way to push past that. And he still has at least a few toes over the line into that way of thinking. But this is a step in the right direction. It kind of looks that way to me.
I feel like you can build so much intimacy without sex. So like if we're in a room with a whole bunch of people, I'm like looking for him. I'm like, where's Devin? Let me find Devin. Or like that. If he's in the hallway, I'm like, where? He's been gone for a while, So it's just like this like natural like desire to be around him.
That's promising. I have been, I guess, I mean, as a clinician, it's neither here nor there. But as a citizen watching the show, meaning as a clinician, I don't, in that mindset, I don't attribute any hopes or any need to have them get married or not. But as a citizen, just a regular person watching this show, I find myself more and more pulling for them and hoping that they work out. So to hear her say that, it is a tick in the column of optimism about the two of them that she is having those impulses and framing it and experiencing it as love and intimacy.
We were in a similar situation.
Okay.
Like with like between two girls or whatever.
Yeah.
And like we both ended up going for the girls that people didn't expect us to, based on like our interests and stuff. So we like bonded over that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like.
That's interesting. I don't think we saw direct conversations between Dave and Devin about how they both liked two different people. By the way, I heard, I think from my wife, that, because Devin broke up with Brittany, and I heard, I think from my wife, that Brittany and someone else, another guy in the show, got engaged. And it wasn't included in the edit. Don't quote me on that. But I plan on making some videos looking into the news as of today, before the next batch of episodes are published, just as a way of looking into things. I've heard some things about Alex that I am curious about and will make some videos about. And, I don't want to, in those videos, I will be very clear that we need to be very skeptical about personal accounts without verification. Sometimes, though, there are more confident things that we can conclude based on the robust nature of the disclosures from other people. Anyway, but yeah. So wait, what was I talking about? Oh, right. So it was briefly depicted in the edit that Devin and Dave were close. Dave's crying and Devin's listening, while other guys were, like Joey, weren't as central to that conversation. All right, well, let's adjourn there. I want to remind you, if I haven't reminded you in a while, that Psychology in Seattle is, I don't know the exact number, but we are close, if not actually carbon neutral, as they say, in that the energy that is used to light these lights and run my computer and run the camera and the heat and all the stuff in my office is with renewable energy. Solar is a big one for this home office. I installed a lot of solar panels, and Seattle doesn't get a lot of sun, but enough to at least overall on the year make it so that I can get closer to carbon neutral. And a lot of the energy that I get from the grid, the majority of the energy I get from the street, is also from carbon neutral or renewable green resources like hydro and wind and nuclear and this sort of thing. So I don't know if that matters to you. It certainly does to me. And I just thought I'd say that. Again, I don't know the exact math. I haven't had an independent third party come in and evaluate the whole thing. So, this is just my estimation, but that's what I'll say. I don't know if that matters, but it does to me. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.